As powered by Rosenthal Coaching. Today we're gonna approach coaching a team going through major changes.
Hello, I'm Steluța Leo.
And I'm Gabriel Tranapilescu.
We are professional coaches working with leaders and their teams to unleash their superpowers and maximize results. If you're new to our podcast and channel, follow us, subscribe, and get notified whenever we go live. So, Gabe, today's episode is coaching teams going through major changes. And we're going to talk about that because changes are really disruptive, right? We know that whilst they have the potential to to bring positive impact, when they are not managed properly, especially in the context of a team, of a high performing team, this can hinder morale and affect team's performance. It can have direct impact into the results of a team. And we want to talk about three major changes that teams go through. And these changes are good opportunities for coaching your team. And one of them is rapid expansion with quite a bunch of people having to be integrated into a team, right? So post-pandemic era, right? Because we are into a post-pandemic era in which technology and the world of business changed quite a lot. The outlook of business changed quite a lot. There are so many technology companies that are booming these days because of the reality that we are living now. There are a lot of companies who are expanding rapidly, and they have to deal with onboarding lots of people, and this can be really disruptive change. There are also a lot of people leaving organizations and joining new organizations, and of course the companies that lose a lot of headcount need to onboard as soon as possible and integrate the new members into their culture. And we do consider that this is a really suitable opportunity for a team to be coached because of all these changes. And let's talk about this, Gabe, for a moment. What's your take on this? Why is rapid expansion of a team or rapid headcount change a really good opportunity for coaching a team? And how does this impact a team's performance?
Yes, indeed, rapid expansion, which usually means more people joining teams at the same time, which is to say more than two or three people joining the team at the same time. It can bring about quite a disruption because usually when this happens, the new people need to get on board rather quickly and also align quickly with the rhythm of the team already existing and all the team dynamics and processes and systems. And usually because this happens when the company is growing fast, the pace is very fast. So everything uh, like a ripple, everything happening in the team dynamics is happening faster than usual because they're expanding and bringing people faster into the team, and the people who are brought into a team need to get onboarded faster and so on. So and for the manager of this respective team, it's usually a bit of a challenge to get these people onboarded while managing the team, especially when, as you mentioned, when it's the case of a high performing team. So it's like having two major, drivers pulling at the same time, and it can be quite challenging for the leader. And so they can either coach individually as a leader these people who are onboarded to make sure that as a leader they know how they see this coming on board, and how they see it. So what's their perspective as the new team members of joining this team, and how they see themselves into the team, and so on. And they can be coached individually, or of course it's a good idea to bring in team coaching, and in this way integrating everybody within a certain framework that can help with onboarding, and making this transition easier for both the people who are coming on board and the manager managing the team, while trying to keep it at high performing level. So both of the ideas can work. They can even work together, like as individual coaching for the team members from from the manager, and the team coaching performed by an external coach, so they can go very well together.
So they don't exclude each other, right? It is, you can do individual team coaching, and you can do individual coaching and team coaching at the same time. And the purpose is to make sure that your team is sustainable and high performing on a long run, right? So they don't, because they're in the one of the reasons that we're doing this podcast is to bring more awareness into the business world about team coaching, right? Because people are in the business world are very familiar with leadership coaching, with executive coaching, with life coaching. We work with a lot of executives who take coaching for themselves as a tool for personal development, but people are not very much aware of team coaching as a tool for achieving high performance and for managing and smoothing the gap within a team when a big transition is happening, when a big change is happening within that team. And because the world that we are living in changes at such a big pace, and it's been this technological evolution has happened at a pace like never before, right, over the past 10 years. And it's been propelled forward because of the reality of the 2.5 years, right? Many organizations had to pivot the business model to adjust to the current market situation, right? So this is also a reality that teams are facing. This is a big change, a major change that a team and an organization can go through. And it is also a good opportunity for team coaching, not only for leadership and executive coaching. Let's dive into the challenges of pivoting the business model to adjust to the current market situation for a team with the impact that it has on its dynamics, on the performance, Gabe.
Yes. So indeed, as you said, these past 2.5 years, very soon 3 years into the pandemic, beyond I would say the negative fact that a lot of people suffered or even died because of this. Of course, like anything else, it has a flip side, which is it forced a lot of things to change very fast, and some of them for the better. I wouldn't say like everything changed for the better, but some of them, including some business models, were forced to change for the better. So when these companies who needed actually to change to survive, because you don't pivot your business just because you decide to. Usually you pivot the business when you need to survive, or you see an opportunity to thrive in a new market. So it needs to have a certain magnitude of disruption to have this decision by the leadership and the CEO and the board of directors, or who is making this decision. So when you do that, it's a big decision, first of all, and because maybe uh, in some cases the businesses have been working in a certain way for tens of years, or I don't know, maybe 100 years, and suddenly because of this big disruption, you have to pivot your business to survive and to thrive into the new uh, era, I would say. And when this happens, beyond changing the business model and maybe the product, or innovating a new product, or finding a new market. The bigger thing is that people need to shift their perspective, and the teams themselves need to, I would say, stay ahead of this change, like to be prepared for the change before the change happens. And this is very hard to grasp at a theoretical level, but from our experience with working with these teams who, let's say before the pandemic, they didn't have this type of disruption, but they wanted, or they needed also to change because of other factors. Uh, Working with the people before the pivoting is happening, so starting before the pivoting is happening, it's the optimal time to do it. So if you know beforehand, then usually like as a leader or leadership team, they know what's the timeline, so they know when it's going to happen and what are the stages. It's best, and as I said, optimal time to do it before, to prepare the teams through this change, to accommodate the change, and to ride this wave of the change. So obviously, team coaching is a good scenario to work with, and we have obviously several frameworks accustomed to this type of changes. And
I don't know if you guys can hear me or see me, but it seems that we have a connectivity issue and Gabe is frozen.
connection problems.
Yes, so
Okay.
we had some connections
Yeah.
problems. Welcome back. I can hear you now, Gabe.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're still a bit blurry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay. Okay. I think we lost you when you were talking about the fact that it is optimal to have team coaching prior to pivoting the business model. This is somewhere where we lost you.
Okay. We'll fix this after production. For people watching the live, make sure you watch the YouTube video, which will be very well crafted. So I
And
was
posted on our
basically,
YouTube channel. Sorry for that. Posted on our YouTube channel as well. teamx
yeah.
powered by Rosenthal Coaching.
So I was wrapping up this scenario when a team is best to be coached individually and as a team together, because of course the team has its own entity and identity and culture, but also individual members have their own individual things that they're concerned with, or they want to clarify their mind, or align themselves with this change. And some of the things cannot be done um, in the collective environment, and they want to do individual coaching as well, and that's okay. They can do it with a manager or the leader who can provide with their leadership skills, their coaching and leadership skills. They can provide guidance and be there for them, and also combined with the external team coaching, because team coaching cannot be really done internally by any internal person. So then we have two perspectives, and the team is better prepared to accommodate a big change who's pivoting the business model.
Yeah, thank you for sharing these details and why this is really important to have your team coached. So I think one of the things that we need to acknowledge is that teams are made of human beings. And this is a thing that I do emphasize a lot, despite the fact that we are in a business environment, despite the fact that we are talking with corporations, that we are talking with big organizations, their teams. And unfortunately, there are still organizations out there who treat their team members as just names in a spreadsheet, just numbers. But more and more, the fact that teams are made up of human beings comes to the surface of the conversation, surfaces in the business conversations as well. So it is really important for managers, for you as people leaders, to acknowledge the fact that going through a major change is disruptive, because your team is made of human beings who need clarity. If you are to look at yourself as an individual, as a person, beyond the title that you're using in your work, you also have your fears, you also have your doubts, and you need to acknowledge the fact that your team members, each of them, goes through similar challenges, similar fears, similar doubts when changes happen, when there's no clarity, and when we don't know where we're heading, we are afraid. So it is because of that we need to acknowledge that people need guidance, people need clarity, people need to be coached so that they find their own insights, because they're afraid of the change. So they need to be coached to find their own insights and find the possibility of growth and development within this change, because with changes come challenges, and people might be worried that maybe they don't have the skill level to accommodate the changes required when you're pivoting a business, right? So all these things need to be acknowledged by team leaders, by people managers, because people are part of the team. It's not, we're not running teams made up of robots or just and I can, probably one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about talking about this and bringing it to the forefront of the conversation is that I used to work for huge organizations, and I had two types of leaders. I had people leaders who are really close to me as a human being, and we had leaders who looked at us, the team members, and in the org chart, just as numbers or little names in their spreadsheet, in their report, and that's it. So I would really like for people to shift the conversation towards acknowledging the fact that teams are made up of individuals, and you cannot make a successful business, you cannot drive a successful business without acknowledging that, because otherwise you will get into a situation in which you have a revolving door of people coming in and out of your organization if you do not acknowledge the fact that, especially when you're going through difficult changes, people need more attention, right? So these were the two initial contests that we wanted to talk about. And because we're talking about how the world changes and how technology changes the business world, and how so many organizations now pivoted their business model, unfortunately, there were organizations who struggled, and there will always be businesses who struggle and who are taken over by other organizations, or there are businesses who come together to grow together, to merge their strengths into one organization. And this is the third major change that we want to talk about, that it is a good opportunity for coaching in his or her organization, mergers and acquisitions, with teams merging or getting restructured, right? Because with these type of changes, of transitions, of mergers and acquisitions, there is a lot of hustle, and there is a lot of uncertainty, and there is a lot of emotion behind what's going on there. So let's talk about this type of change, Gabe, a bit, and how does it affect a team dynamic? How does it impact the team's morale? And how does that impact, in the end, team's performance?
Yeah. Yeah, this is again another major disruption, and all of these are disruptions in the, as you mentioned, the rhythm of the team, their team dynamics, everything that's happening how they work together, and because mergers and acquisitions imply that um, two groups of people who are each one of them are teams, but for the other one, at least at the beginning, are just a group, right? They're not part of the team. It's kind of a weird place at the beginning, right? There are two groups of people. They're either they need to merge. Some of the roles would be redundant, so some of the people would be let go, let's say elegantly, right? or repositioned on other functions. So it's this kind of a weird dance of two groups of people who need to come together at some point and work together. So it's a very delicate situation, and also because ultimately a team cannot have two formal leaders, they will have to choose one leader to lead the merged team. So there are many factors and variables who at play here who can either make a new team, a merged team, very strong, or it can break it down. So it's a very delicate situation, and imagine like all the two rhythms need to align, the two cultures need to align, the values need to align. Everything needs to come together and filter out and keep the nucleus of this new formed team uh, very strong and going into the same direction. One of the images I'm always using, and either when we create content or just as a metaphor, and I think it's best for this situation as well, it's a dragon boat where you have half of the crew is from one team, half of the crew is the other team, and they need to sync and start working together because otherwise the boat won't move. Maybe if somebody uh, paddles in one direction, somebody else in other direction, somebody else, there are counter times and stuff like that. Is the boat is not going to move, so they need to align everything: the rhythm, the energy, the culture, the power of their stroke, and everything. Like they need to be aligned. And I think from all of the three categories we mentioned as a good opportunity and challenging opportunity that could really be helped by team coaching, this is the most delicate, because again it's this weird dance and people need to come together and sync and like each other after all, and then wanting to work with each other and just connect at the human level. As you said, of course they need to connect as humans, and they need to work together as humans towards moving into the same direction with the same rhythm. And this is a very good opportunity to bring in team coaching and align all these steps, help align all these steps together.
Yeah, so that's so true, and I love the metaphor that you used, or that you brought with the dragon boat, because it is such a powerful visual, right? It's these people in need to work interdependently, right? And this is so important to acknowledge that when people come together, they don't work like in this little, how do you call it? It's like a little glass bulbs, and they're not. In order for a team to be high performing, people need to work interdependently. And we had an episode in which we talked about that, about the importance of working dependently, interdependently, and I will link it in the comments below. And I can speak from my own experience, the fact that, so I went in my corporate life, I was part of two organizations that where one of them was acquired and the other one acquired. So I went through two periods of stress and uncertainty being on both sides, because when we're talking about mergers and acquisitions, we need to acknowledge the fact that one organization takes over another one. And there is, at the top of the organization, of course, there are all the politics and everything, and all the things that teams underneath the top chart are not aware of. But internally, there's also kind of a power struggle, and there's also the uncertainty that we talked about, right? Because despite the fact that if you're in the stronger organization that takes over, you might be feeling confident that your role is safe. You never know, because in the smaller organization, there might be people who are more skilled than you. And there's this uncertainty factor that is really important for managers to acknowledge, and there needs to be a lot of conversations around that. And there needs to, once the merger is settled, this is a really good opportunity for team coaching, because these energies and the energy of separation, right, because it's an energy in itself, will be there for a long time when teams come together, when team members come together, especially if it happened that along the lines of the acquisition, maybe team members were, teams were shuffled, and some friends of yours might have left, or might be, released from their roles, or might be moved to other organizations. So there's a lot of energies like that. So it is really important for leaders to bring the new formed teams that are mixed together in order to release all the tensions and shift this dynamic that we keep on talking about, right? Shift the energy that is underlying how the team performs and how people come together at work, right? Because if they don't feel safe, when us as human beings, we don't feel safe, that's not a good thing, and it impacts everything we do in work environments. It's the same thing, right? And I think if I look back at the times when I went through these mergers and acquisitions, being both in the smaller organization that was acquired and the large organization that acquired, I remember, even to this day, I remember the emotional charge that was in there. And I remember that it lingered on for a long time until we managed to come together and to become productive. Whilst this could have easily been managed through some sessions of team coaching, in which we would have gotten to know each other, in which we would have gotten to get aligned to the goals and the vision of the new organization that was born from this merger and acquisition. So just to wrap it up before we go, Gabe, we talked about three important major changes that teams can go through. There are good opportunities both for individual coaching and for team coaching, right? We talked about organizations bringing on a large number of people when they're going through expansions, and with the impact that it has on team morale and team dynamics. We talked about having to pivot a business model and the impact that it has. And we also talked about mergers and acquisitions, which can take a really big toll. All these three types of changes can take a really big toll on your numbers, on your KPIs as a leader. Is there anything else that we want to add, Gabe, before we finish this live, we end this live?
Yeah, as you were describing your personal experiences going through mergers and acquisitions, both on both sides, basically, a secondary visual metaphor came into my mind, which I also love, and that's the metronomes. That initially they are like not in sync, but if you place them on the same piece of whatever board, or it doesn't really matter, and you start moving them, if they move together, regardless of the direction, and this is a fact, it's a scientific fact, if they move together, at some point they synchronize. Even if you have five or whatever, 100, which are all pointing out in different directions, if you put them on the same base, have the same support, physical support, and you move that support, right? And so obviously they move in the same direction, regardless in which direction. At some point, inevitably, they sync perfectly. And this is very interesting to think about in terms of team coaching and in teams in general, team dynamics, because if, and I think this is more like a recommendation, if you will, as a leader, if you succeed in getting all the people in the team moving in the same direction, regardless, nobody knows if it's the right direction until you get there, right? It's just like that. Nobody knows the future. But if you're having the best intention, you love your people, you want them to become better, you want your team to be or become high performing, and you start doing things with them and you succeed in moving them in the same direction, this is the only key that it's fundamental to anything else, regardless of how they are, how, different cultures, different values, different everything. In any of these situations we described, if you move in the same direction, they will in sync. They will sync at some point. And for leaders, think about this metaphor, which is very interesting visually, and it's a scientific fact as well.
And just want to add to that, because I loved what you said, at some point, you cannot wait for the at some point to happen, You don't need to wait for the at some point to happen and struggle in the dark, not knowing where you're going to with that. You can bring coaching in as a tool and have the team synced together way faster than if you were to do it yourself, and just have to figure it out by yourself, whilst having to figure out other things at the same time when you're going through these major changes. So thank you guys for watching. That was all for today from teamx, powered by Rosenthal Coaching. Please make sure to follow us, to reach out to us, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching us on YouTube. If you have any subjects that you would like us to cover when it comes to team coaching, we would love to do that. Write in the comments below or send us a message either on LinkedIn or at teamx@rosenthalcoaching.com. Meanwhile, until next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, stay well, stay safe, and see you next week, guys. Bye, everyone.
Yes. Bye, everyone, and thank you.